Christopher Nolan is one of the biggest filmmakers working today, and is one of those handful of filmmakers who is yet to deliver a bad film. However, there are times when a few of his films feel weak compared to others. And after watching Tenet yesterday, this question is not leaving my mind, that is Tenet his weakest film? Before I start, I must say this review is my opinion, and it might not coincide with the popular opinion, so I request you to be respectful and just listen to what I have to say. And if you end up disagreeing, we can have a healthy conversation in the comment section. Cool? Alright, let's do it then. Tenet, starring these people, is a story of a man embarking on a dangerous time-bending journey to prevent World War III. Now there's a lot to talk about this movie, and there are a few things which cannot be talked about without going into the spoiler territory, so I'll keep my mouth shut for those parts and I'll keep this review spoiler-free. So yeah, you can relax. Even if you have not watched it, you can still go further.
Well, I've seen too much. Well, we'll try and keep up.
I'll first start off with the things I liked. The performances. Although the characters were very one-dimensional, which I'll talk about soon, I think it was the performances by the actors and the chemistry between the characters that somewhat got me engaged with these characters. I think we can safely say that John Davis Washington has truly made his own name in the industry than just being the son of Denzel Washington. I mean, he already did that with BlacKkKlansman, but with this one, he became a force to be reckoned with. Kenneth Branagh, although I must say, went to that over-the-top territory at times, but I guess that was the intention, and it worked for me for the most part, so not complaining. But the best performance, in my opinion, was given by Robert Pattinson. It's just whenever he was on the screen, he was oozing with charisma. The editing is another thing that I really liked for the most part. No spoilers, this scene is preceded by an intercut of different scenes, and it felt very fluid. I didn't feel like I was bombarded with different scenes while the characters were just spitting out the plot points. Speaking of editing, I want to talk about how great the fight scenes were and how nicely they were edited. Nolan gave us time to absorb each shot before the edit, and thankfully he did not give us that seizure-inducing edit of Batman Begins. Yeah, that one. Even when they are fighting in reverse, they didn't resort to those cheap cutting on hit technique to make the job easy for them. I also liked how they didn't just throw in unnecessary wide shots like The Dark Knight Rises. It's really good to see how Nolan is evolving with the fight scenes, although still nothing beats this from Inception, to be honest. Also, I like how detailed Chris Nolan's films are, There are so many moments where it is required to call back to a certain scene, and it only happens if you perfectly place a certain object and a certain character at the right place at the right time. And you have to do that very, very softly, very, very subtly. In a plot-driven film, that is very important, and I think Christopher Nolan is very good at that. I think this review would be incomplete if I don't talk about how good Ludwig Göransson's score for this film was. He's one of my favorite upcoming music composers, and I love his work in almost everything. From Creed to Mandalorian to Black Panther and now Tenet, he's just knocking it out of the park. Specifically here in Tenet, he had to fill in the big shoes of Hans Zimmer, who last collaborated with Christopher Nolan on Dunkirk and gave us one of the greatest use of music in films in this era. So clearly there was a lot of pressure on someone new like Ludwig Göransson. But I'm glad to say that he lived up to the standards set by Hans Zimmer. The score, although was very Zimmer-esque, but it still felt very experimental. Maybe because in the inversion scenes, I think he backmasked some of his tracks and the music was playing in reverse, which really added to that scene. But if I'm being honest, at times it felt like Nolan and Göransson were just trying to throw the score on our faces. Like at times it felt like they were just shoehorning the score by making it obnoxiously loud, which was distracting me from the scene. I'll talk more about that later too. Now, with that being said, I do have some major issues with this film, and I would like to start off with the elephant in the room, that is, the script. This is easily the weakest script Nolan worked on. Now, a few days ago, I was having a chat with a friend of mine where we were talking about Aaron Sorkin and his film The Trial of Chicago 7. And he made a point that director Aaron Sorkin cannot do justice to the brilliance of writer Aaron Sorkin. And I think it's the opposite with Christopher Nolan. It's like the writer Christopher Nolan cannot do justice to the director Christopher Nolan, and it is very evident in this film. This film is bogged down by exposition. Every major action taken by the protagonist is set up using some heavy exposition. Like almost every major scene is set up by some characters spitting out plot details. Basically, Dimple Kapadia's character is only there to serve this purpose. And I personally hate it when a film relies heavily on exposition, where the characters have to just come in and explain what's been happening all this time. It just takes me out of the movie, and Tenet is the biggest violator of that. And that's not my only issue with the script. I felt the characters were very one-dimensional, to the point that if the protagonist died in the middle of the film, I would feel nothing. And I should feel something because he's the main character, and I know it's a plot-driven film, and most of Chris Nolan films are plot-driven, but even in those films, you have a connection with the main character because they have some personal stakes in the film. Here, except for Elizabeth Debicki's character, no one had any personal stake here. And if I'm being honest, her personal angle with her son felt very shoehorned, and I thought it was just there to give a backbone to the film. Also, I feel like some characters were only developed just to serve the plot. There was a certain thing which was supposed to happen to Kenneth Branagh's character during the climax, which had no proper explanation, and it felt like it was only forced in just to further the plot and give an objective to the main characters. Another thing that brought down this film were the dialogues. And it has been an issue with Interstellar as well. The thing is, when you're relying so much on exposition, you need compelling dialogues to at least sell that part to the audience. But the dialogues here weakened that exposition even further. From a technical standpoint, I must say that this film is almost brilliant. It's beautifully shot, nicely edited, but it's pulled down by its sound mixing. It's like when they were mixing the audio, they simply reduced the volume of the dialogues and just amplified the score and all the secondary sounds from gunshot to cars to everything else in the film. Maybe because they wanted to cover up for the weak dialogues? Well, I guess. Okay, seriously, even in this scene, the sound of the engine and the waves were overpowering the audio of the characters. I get it, Chris Nolan wants us to feel like we are standing there with the characters in that particular scene, but honestly for me the sounds got really annoying. See, overall I did enjoy the film, to be honest, and it's not a bad film by any means. But the thing is, you expect more from a filmmaker who gave you these films than just an above average blockbuster. I don't see this film staying with me for long. All that exposition and one-dimensional characters made the film pretty forgettable for me. And I do believe this is his weakest film. It's not like for example, last year when I watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it was one of those films which got better the more I thought about it. Tenet is definitely not one of those films. It's exact opposite of that. The more I think about what was happening in Tenet, the more I try to connect the dots, the more I try to think about the characters, the more I tend to dislike the film. Tenet is one of those films where the filmmaker got too carried away with the concept that he compromised on the storytelling. I mean, obviously it's a great concept, it's a very tempting concept, and any filmmaker can get easily carried away with this kind of concept, but when the man behind the wheel is Christopher Nolan, we expect much more than just something delivered by an average filmmaker. So I hope you liked the review, and I know that some of you might not agree to what I'm saying. I wouldn't mind if you shared your opinion in the comment section and we can have a really good discussion about that. And for those who are new to this channel, please subscribe. I really need your support. I'll be watching David Fincher's Mank shortly and I'll be coming up with a review for that too. So stay tuned and thank you very much.